pop4conservation.com. Ladies and gentlemen, that's where you want to go to support Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation fundraising efforts. Pop4conservation.com is where you can go to be a big winner. 80 winners, over $200,000 in prizes, vehicles, firearms, hunting and fishing packages. Again, 80 winners, over $200K in prizes. Pop4conservation.com, protecting our pursuits. Pop4conservation.com. Go there today to enter. Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your weekly Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your look at conservation, hunting, fishing news from across the nation. On this Thursday edition, accounting for the Columbus Day holiday at the beginning of the week and some CSF travel. We're going to get fit the end of last week. So thanks for the 1 day delay. Doesn't change what we got to offer. So let's get to it. We are going to start and revisit with our past guest, Barry Snell in California. 16 most lackluster anti-firearm bills signed into law. We'll get with Barry here in a minute. A recap of the annual Wine, Wheels, and Wildlife event I just mentioned at the end of last week. Why are right to hunt and fish constitutional amendments important? New Massachusetts firearm laws impacting non-resident hunters. This is more of an update on the egregious House Bill 4885, Chapter 135. We'll get into it. Missouri holds early antlerless firearm deer season. Pennsylvania unveils a new sportsman's license that we're going to talk about. Cool funding mechanisms there. And then we have two action alerts to cover for you in Florida and in Colorado. We'll get to all that and more, but let's welcome in good friend Barry Snell. Barry, thanks for the time. How are you?
I am great, Fred. Thanks for having me on again.
So what we have here is just, a wish list for somebody, but just a long line of, as you said, just non-productive legislation for firearm owners and conservation. I'm going to let you take the lead because, man, there's a lot here to discuss, and I guess no surprise given it's California.
Yeah, California is always an interesting state, much to everybody's frustration in the rest of the country. But this year, I would have to say, is noteworthy because, as probably all of our listeners know, there's usually, consistently, one can expect there to be anti-gun legislation coming out of California. And that has been true for many years, so it's a pretty good assumption that this year would have been no different. However, our in-state partners, we bucked the trend in California this year. They proposed dozens of anti-gun and anti-hunting pieces of legislation this year. Only 16 of them, as you noted, made it across the finish line. And while that does sound like a lot, 16 would be, a hell of a lot in like Iowa or Arkansas or something like
right.
that. For California, it's pretty darn good. And on top of that, not only is the number lower than it could have been, but the legislation that Governor Newsom signed is itself, like you said, the word that you said was lackluster. It really is. The vast majority of them are just corrections in language, primarily revolving around what the rest of the country calls red flag laws.
Okay.
They call them gun violence protective orders there in California. And these are just, when bills are written, sometimes they're not perfect when they write them. They're a little bit imprecise in their language, or they say something that they didn't exactly mean. And then in the next sessions after that, they got to go back and pass some bills to change a word or two, or rephrase a sentence or things like that. And that's the vast majority of what we got this year was stuff that was just kind of tweaking those red flag laws in California. And there was only a couple of them that really stood out as what I would say is pretty significant violations of one's gun rights, or well, it was all gun rights. All the stuff that passed was gun related. It didn't really get into hunting this year. So all in all, pretty pretty darn good year. We bucked the trend, and that's certainly newsworthy.
I feel like it's like that bar might be set a little differently than the rest of the country, right? Because
Right.
California has been so egregious in the past. And I hate to even speak it, but you almost wonder what's possible after you've done everything you possibly could short of confiscation and a complete dumping on folks in California Second Amendment rights, just trashing that. I mean, yeah, they've got a pile of bad bills and bad law out there, and I just like I said, I don't know how much more they could do. So this is in itself maybe a good victory because there's not much more they can possibly do.
Right. Yeah, again, I said this a second ago. California is a very interesting state.
Well,
It is very unique compared to the rest of the country, and you're right. They have tried everything, and they some actually you'd be shocked. Some of the stuff that they tried earlier was pretty egregious. For example, they wanted one of the bills that was proposed that fortunately was defeated was one that would have required gun owners to pay a fee, basically a registration fee on every single gun that they have
oh
every
man,
single year. Of course, and the idea of that would be to price gun owners out of the ability to
right?
own guns. That was the whole idea. Is if we can't outright ban them, we can make them too expensive for people to own. That was the plan there. That didn't work out, so they actually tried another vector of attack and tried to put it on the insurance companies. Tried to force insurance companies to make gun owners register their firearms with the insurance companies and pay extra insurance, exact same plan
Man,
on every single gun. And on top of that, the state wanted the insurance companies to make gun owners report where the firearms were located specifically. And of course, the gag there is if you made a claim, if you had a house fire or a burglary or something like that, and you made a claim, and what was in reality didn't match what you had reported to the insurance company. So let's say you neglected to report some of your firearms, or you had reported that the firearm was in this particular room, but it turned out it was in this other room. All those kind of circumstances that would have negated your insurance, and you wouldn't have been able to make a claim. So they tried that too, and that failed. So there's there's still a lot of things that they would like to do out there. They have, there's this theory that one of the reasons that so many anti-gun bills get brought up in California in the first place is just the media coverage. So California has term limits, so there's always a constant cycle of people coming and going out of the legislature there, and a lot of these new folks, especially from the urban areas, come in. They want to make a name for themselves, and they want to get on TV. And one of the most guaranteed ways that a person can get on the news in California is to bring up gun legislation, because the media will jump all over that, and they feel that that's good for the constituents. So that's one of the theories of why this crap keeps coming up over and over and over and over again. And another thing too that we have going for us right now is the host of um, Supreme Court decisions in the last couple of years that have really helped us out, like Bruin, Rahimi, those notable cases. Um, those have kind of, I would say, tossed out the parachute to slow things down in California a little bit. They do have to consider that, and there's many examples where they just don't care. They're willing to spend the taxpayers' dollars to defend stupid lawsuits. But we do know from negotiations and talking to some of the legislators that it is on their minds. They are aware of these cases, which is a benefit to us because it does kind of form the way they think about some of these issues.
it is striking to me with such a big state and it's such a big population, and I dare say one of the top 10 economies in the entire world, that this continues to perpetuate. Is it like Southern California and San Francisco that just drives everything in that state? Because there's way more people in between and plenty of sportsmen and women out there, plenty of wrecked shooters. Is this just one more function of people not getting up and voting?
Yeah, this is that, and it's also a function of the rural-urban divide that is becoming increasingly more prevalent in a lot of states. It's not just California. Like
Yeah.
I have or Colorado as well, and it's the same kind of issue there, where you have urban Denver and Colorado Springs trying to dictate to the rest of the state
Yeah.
just exactly what the policy ought to be, and it's no different in California. So it is mostly Southern California, the Los Angeles, LA. It's noteworthy that Los Angeles County by itself has more people living in it than a lot of states have
Yeah.
in the entire
Right.
within their entire borders. So it's a very densely packed urban area there, and of course San Francisco lumps itself there. They probably wish they were a little farther south than they are, but they probably fit in more. But the rest of California is what you would describe as, air quotes here, normal.
Right.
They the rest of California represents Nebraska or Iowa more than it does, the values of Los Angeles.
Right.
So it is a stark contrast in the cultures there for sure. And I would say that even in the big cities where there are so many problems, that there are signs of the pendulum beginning to swing back in the other direction, because things can only be so bad for so long before
Sure.
people get tired of it.
Mhm.
And I think we are starting to reach the point there where folks are like, you know what, we don't like the way this is going. Maybe we need to start doing something else. So I have a little bit of hope for California. It's a remarkable state. As you noted, it is the one of the largest economies in the world, second largest in America. It is also the largest concentration of gun owners in
Yeah.
America as well. The hunting numbers are a little skewed because they have a lot more restrictions on hunting than a lot of other states. So it's kind of hard to make an apples to apples comparison
Mhm.
with other states on that. But it certainly does have a vibrant culture with respect to our kind of values and interests. So a lot of people write California off, but I think California's got an awful lot of people, and they need support, and that's what we're here doing.
Yeah. It's the conversation obviously being timely in this very contentious election cycle that hopefully we get sussed out here in a couple of weeks. But I hear, I do, probably daily on programming I tune into or read, and there's this huge movement. It seems to pop up every 4 years, and it gets more concerning. But this idea of doing away with electoral college. Obviously, there's an issue there with civics lessons and the public school systems, but here's California, a perfect example of why the electoral college was set up by our founders for the entire country, because you could have Los Angeles County, New York City, and a couple others just telling everyone what the hell to do with their lives. And yeah, that's not right. And I feel bad for the folks of California. I feel bad for upper state New York that are pretty much subject to, like you said, the metropolitan big city folks who have zero clue what's going on outside of their concrete jungle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a lot of friends in California now, and of course, our in-state partners, and as an outsider, somebody who doesn't live in California, I have often wondered, probably just like the rest of our listeners here, why in the heck don't they just leave?
Yeah,
How can you stay there and live there? But the thing is, it's their home.
right.
Yeah, that's the thing to remember. They don't want to be driven out of their homes
Sure.
by, in some cases, not all, but in some cases, by crazy people. There are a lot
Yeah,
of lunatics that have some really wild ideas, and they get a lot of immediate attention and makes a lot of splash, and of course that attracts attention to the legislature, et cetera, and the snowball rolls downhill. But they don't want to be kicked out of their own dang home, and I don't blame them for that. So they stay and they fight, and I've got a lot of sympathy and empathy for that. And as long as they're willing to stand up and try and push back, then I definitely am here for it. I want CSF to support that as well.
yeah, no doubt. And you're doing some damn good work out there, along with the Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus that we've reported on over the summer, and making strides. So, um, continued success out there, my friend. Keep up the good work, and obviously we laud the work of the California Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus and look forward to seeing what 2025 brings for more good legislation for sportsmen and women out there in California.
Appreciate that, Fred. Thank you so much for having me on.
Hi, brother. All right. My thanks to Barry once again for his reporting. Let us now go across the nation with the rest of the news for this week, October 14th. As mentioned at the top, we have a quick rundown of our 20th annual Wine, Wheels, and Wildlife regional event held in Lexington, North Carolina, with the chairman of the board, Richard Childress, at his vineyard. Bringing this quote from Richard. For 2 decades, I have been hosting Wine, Wheels, and Wildlife to celebrate and support CSF's leadership on behalf of America's sportsmen and women and their impact on our country's rich sporting heritage. It goes on to say, the great team of hunters, anglers, and policy professionals at CSF work very hard every day to protect and promote the outdoor heritage that I and all the attendees of Wine, Wheels, and Wildlife hold so dear. I am honored to support that mission and to be a long-standing partner of the Congressional Sports Foundation. During the event, attendees were addressed by Congressman Richard Hudson about the importance of sharing the tradition of our time-honored pursuits with future generations, and also were addressed by retired United States Marine and host of Fox Nation Outdoors, Joey Jones. Other notable guests included outdoor media personality Eva Shockey, among others. The event concluded with a live auction as part of the night's entertainment to help CSF further our mission and protect advancing hunting, angling, recreational shooting, and trapping in the halls of government. This quote from our President and CEO, Jeff Crane. CSF is grateful for the continued support of Richard Childress in hosting this annual event for 20 years. The Wine, Wheels, and Wildlife event provides an unparalleled opportunity to bring together the sporting conservation community to learn about CSF's critical role in sportsmen's policy arena. He goes on to say, on behalf of CSF and the entire sporting conservation community, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Richard Childress, not only for his generosity in hosting the event for 2 decades, but also for his tremendous impact on and support of our outdoor traditions. CSF would like to extend thanks to all the sponsors who made the event possible. Title sponsors include Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, Childress Vineyards, Eldorado Holdings, Inc., NSSF, Outdoor Sportsmen's Group, and Richard Childress Racing. The host sponsors included Dallas Safari Club, Ducks Unlimited, Hornady Manufacturing, International Order of Teddy Roosevelt, the Kinetic Group, Safari Club International, Shields, and Shimano. So thanks to those sponsors and many more, you can go to the article and read the full list of all the great partners we have and their support. Our thanks to them. It was a great event. The weather was amazing. In contrast to golly days, the terrible weather preceding the event, with the remnants of the hurricane. There was a special, I will tell you, there was a special fundraising within the auction that went directly to hurricane relief there in the western part of the state, in Appalachia. There was a whole lot of good done that night. As far as this program goes, we're going to bring you some coverage of it with some of the personalities on hand. You will hear from Eva Shockey, hear from Johnny Morris once again joining the program. Joey Jones stopped by to say hello. We have a conversation with him. Kevin Van Dam stopped by. So many more. Rob Keck. So it's going to be a fun show to bring to you and just get their thoughts, get a little flavor for the evening, and thank those folks for stopping by. Moving along Why are right to hunt and fish constitutional amendments important? I feel like this goes without saying. Mark Lance brings us this article. Hit you with the highlights, and then this will tie in well with one of the action alerts we've got for you. Right to hunt and fish constitutional amendments protect the right of sportsmen and women in perpetuity, which preempts local legislation or regulation that frustrates comprehensive statewide wildlife management. Right to hunt and fish further codifies that wildlife are held in the public trust, which is a key component of the North American model of wildlife management, the most successful wildlife management in the world. Right to hunt and fish recognizes that hunting and fishing utilize the best available science to determine harvestable surpluses are the preferred means of managing wildlife rather than unproven and emotion-driven means of governance that anti-hunting groups push. Right to hunt and fish further highlights the importance of hunting and fishing as it pertains to generating funding for conservation through the user-pays public benefit structure of the American System of Conservation Funding. Currently, and as covered in the past, there are 23 states that have constitutional amendments that have the right to hunt and fish in their state constitution. Many of those are states where someone would never believe that hunting and fishing could not be threatened, as they make up the cultural fabric of communities across the state. However, foreign community often sees attempts to unnecessarily limit hunting and fishing opportunities. The article goes on to cite Prop 127. Again, we're going to get into, and we've covered tremendously on this program out in Colorado. It should be a bigger number. We're hoping to get to 24, and that will lead me well into our first action alert. And that is taking action in Florida on voting day on November 5th, and hope to make Florida become the 24th state with a state constitutional amendment for the right to hunt and fish and traditional hunt. So if you're from Florida, if you're a legislator, if you're passively listening to this, in short, go vote. You can get current with the latest news on Florida right to hunt and fish policy. You can sign up for our newsletters, as always, by going to congressionalsportsmen.org. If you sign up there, you'll get these alerts as well as the weekly EPUB of the Sportsman's Voice. What does Amendment 2 do? Just a quick hitter here. It protects Florida's sporting traditions for future generations by protecting the right to hunt, fish, and harvest wildlife in perpetuity. It ensures that hunting and fishing continue to be the preferred means of wildlife and fish management. It further codifies public trust, as we covered. It does not, here's what it does not do, affect the constitutional authority of Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, i.e., the right to hunt and fish will still be subject to rules and regulations developed by the commission, including season dates and bag limits. It does not affect private property rights, nor does it allow for the use of methods of take that are currently legal. Further, it protects the over $70 million per year that sportsmen and women generate throughout the American System of Conservation Funding, which benefits both game and non-game species alike. So there's a little of what it will positively do, and then also, kind of beating back what some people think it will do and what truly it does not do. Again, sign up for the EPUBs. You can get those action alerts. We're going to head to the Bay State, Massachusetts. Again, as covered since for almost a year. Well, I think it's been a year now. This just terrible bill in Massachusetts that ended up being passed in the dead of night, and it was just force-fed down the citizenry's throats in Massachusetts, and now they got to deal with it because it was signed into law on an emergency status, which appears to be nothing more than political gamesmanship and legalese that will tie up the grassroots effort in Massachusetts by the Second Amendment and sporting community efforts to gather signatures to put this issue on the 2025 ballot. Obviously, more to come on that as we get information. And our assistant manager in the region, Christian Ragosa, will provide updates going forward. But the update he does provide this week, and has been a point of concern, is if you're a non-resident, with all the new changes in Massachusetts, who can hunt? What can you do as far as equipment, and is there reimbursement potential for licenses based on the changes here? So I'll bring you what Christian's got here. In July of this year, Mass passed the omnibus gun bill. In response, I just covered all this. In response, citizen groups attempted to bring the new law to the 2026 general ballot. 2026 correction there with a petition process. However, on October 2nd, the governor signed an emergency preamble to make the law take effect immediately. Due to the overlapping and confusing nature of these laws, many sportsmen and women have been left confused as to what they can and cannot possess as their favorite hunting firearm for the upcoming season. Non-resident hunters cannot use semi-automatic firearms of any type. You're going to go turkey hunt. You're going to go waterfowl. There's some great waterfowl fowling to be had, especially South Side, Cape Cod, and places like that. So you're not bringing your favorite Benelli. National Shooting Sports Foundation has identified semi-automatic shotguns as the top shipped style of shotgun to Massachusetts in 2024. Massachusetts fall turkey season has started, and small game season starts in the coming weeks. Further complicating that, upland folks, House Bill 4885 has confusing patchwork of regulations which muddy the water for who and what is now allowed in the Commonwealth. Thanks to the efforts of co-chair of the Massachusetts Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus, Senator Durant's office and administration has clarified the impact of these new laws as it relates to non-resident hunters. This fall turkey season started October 7th. For much of the Commonwealth and small game seasons start in the coming weeks, it is important to make sure non-resident hunters know what firearms are now legal to possess for hunting. Section 129C, paragraph J states, a non-resident who is at least 18 years of age may possess rifles and shotguns that are not large capacity or semi-automatic, and ammunition, therefore, to hunt during hunting season with a non-resident hunting license or permit lawfully issued from their state of residence, which has substantially similar requirements to those in Section 11, Chapter 131, as determined by the Colonel of the State Police pursuant to the subsection. Basically, you got to have from your state a similar process to be permitted to carry a gun. The example I've used in the past weeks, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, New Hampshire and Vermont being immediate neighbors to the north, where a lot of people do jump the border to go enjoy the hunting in Massachusetts. We do not have similar requirements and regiments to hold guns. Matter of fact, we have constitutional carry, so that's not a thing. Unfortunately for the folks in Massachusetts, it is, and unfortunately for non-residents, that puts us in a weird spot, and as it's saying here, most of the stuff we would go hunt with are no longer legal for us to do so. The section allows for the possession of long guns for the purpose of hunting if the individual has non-resident hunting license from the Commonwealth and the firearm is not semi-automatic or large capacity. Although Massachusetts is now allowing non-residents to continue to hunt, banning semi-automatic firearms, particularly shotguns, may have a significant impact on the participation of hunters this season and future, and for future conservation. Due to the regulation limitations, Massachusetts will likely harm conservation funding by potentially decreasing future out-of-state hunting license purchases and negatively impact the sales of commonly used semi-automatic firearms. License sales and excise tax on firearm and ammunition sales are two of the three pillars of the American system of conservation funding, which has restored and conserved fish and wildlife species and their habitats all across the nation, and also benefits non-game and threatened species. CSF would like to thank our legislative co-chairs, Sportsmen's Caucus co-chairs in Massachusetts, with helping navigate and keeping an eye on the confusing patchwork of laws. CSF will continue to work on behalf of sportsmen and women to allow them to enjoy traditional hunting and sporting activities in Massachusetts. And in Missouri, they held early antlerless firearm deer season. It sounds fun. From Kent Keene, last week, Missouri held its second annual early antlerless firearm deer season in 100 of the state's 114 counties. The increased emphasis on antlerless harvest is designed to lower population densities in the face of growing concerns about chronic wasting disease, CWD, while helping balance sex ratios that are often skewed in favor of doe. While many hunters remember that buck-only days that were common throughout parts of the 20th century, the current need for increased emphasis on doe harvest in many areas highlights the success of whitetail deer restoration efforts. Widely regarded as the most popular game species in North America, many hunters forget that less than 100 years ago, whitetail populations across the country were at a tipping point. Since that time, the species has thrived across the continent, thanks in part to the dedicated efforts of state fish and wildlife agencies and our nation's original conservationists, men and women. As part of the restoration effort, many hunting seasons closed across the country. Once they were reopened, many only allowed for the harvest of antlered deer bucks, protecting the breeding females through a management system designed to maximize population growth. Today, with many deer populations at an all-time high, really, harvest systems have needed to adjust to balance deer sex ratios. This resulted in a significant paradigm shift for hunters who were taught that does should be protected at all costs. Fortunately, this sentiment is improving thanks to the advancement of alternative harvest systems, such as quality deer management, which in part places the emphasis on antlerless harvest. Today, particularly in the face of growing concerns around CWD, states further emphasizing the importance of antlerless harvest to lower deer densities. This is why Missouri instituted a series of changes that took effect last year, including the new antlerless only seasons and a new CWD extension to the November firearm season in certain counties. Over the weekend, hunters in the Show Me State had their first opportunity to harvest a doe with a firearm during the early antlerless season. While the harvest data is still being calculated, the availability of the season highlights the important role that hunters play in managing deer populations and protecting deer from the threat of CWD. CSF will continue to support the ability of state fish and wildlife agencies to make science-based management decisions that that best serve the state's natural resource needs and therefore its sportsmen and women. Pennsylvania unveils a new sportsman's license plate that benefits youth hunting and fishing. Pretty cool little initiative here. Let's check it out. On October 1st, the Pennsylvania Game Commission and the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, along with the chairs of the House and Senate Game and Fish Committees, unveiled a new Pennsylvania Sportsman's License Plate, which provides additional funding for youth hunting and fishing accounts, which assist the R3 efforts of youth sportsmen and women. The PA Sportsman Plate was unveiled at the Pennsylvania State Capitol during a press conference at the National Hunting and Fishing Day event hosted by Game and Fish and Boat Commissions. The specialty license plate supports the artwork featuring a fishing scene on a lake, a white-tailed deer, and a ruffed grouse. The plate will cost $40 plus the registration fee, of which $14 will be deposited into a youth hunting and fishing account, which will be allocated evenly to the Game Commission and the Fishing and Boating Commission to be used for the promotion of hunting and fishing for youth activities. In the United States, participation in sporting tradition has been generally declining since the 80s. Sportsmen and women generate billions of dollars annually from the national and local economies and support hundreds of thousands of jobs, while hunting license sales provide funding for wildlife conservation and habitat restoration through the American System of Conservation Funding. In response to the declining number of sportsmen and women, state fish and wildlife agencies, conservation organizations, shooting sports organizations, and hunting, fishing, shooting sports industry have invested heavily in the recruitment, retention, and reactivation initiative. With the introduction of the Pennsylvania Sportsman License Plate, Pennsylvania can proudly show motorists that they are a sportsman or woman while providing some additional funding for youth hunting and fishing programs within the state. CSF applauds the legislature and Governor Josh Shapiro for passing and enacting this legislation to bring attention to provide critical funding for youth hunting and fishing programs. If you are a resident of the Keystone State and wish to purchase your sportsman specialty plate, you can visit Penn DOT website, choose the special fund, and select the sportsman plate option. You can go to Kaylee's article on the website to get a click-through, a link to the Pennsylvania website to purchase that sportsman's plate if you are a resident of Pennsylvania. Very cool. Wrapping up here. Our second of two alerts that went out this week, and this one's concerning Prop 127 in Colorado, as we've covered extensively. If you would like to join CSF and other like-minded outdoor enthusiasts in opposing Prop 127, Colorado's Wildlife Deserves Better is hosting a rally tomorrow, as this episode drops, Friday, October 18th at 11 a.m. on the Colorado Capitol Building grounds in Denver. Wear your camo or blaze orange and invite your family, friends, and neighbors. We look forward to seeing you there. Biggest takeaway here is just voting no on Prop 127 and getting your neighbors, family, friends to do the same. Be on special lookout for that on however you're voting on your ballot, and vote accordingly. Because as we talked about and through many guests, you can take the the bobcat, you can take the lion, and disregard the lynx because it's not a thing in the lower 48. But you could take those two cats, replace them with your favorite other critter that you'd like to pursue, and you have the same bands going forward. If this gets adopted into law in Colorado, and then look out all the rest of the states. Again, see the other programs where we've had Dan Gates on and others to discuss this for more information. Still quite relative and timely, but you got an opportunity here in a few weeks to beat this back. That's the show for this week. Again, thanks for hanging with us with a 1-day delay here. Your seasons are going well. A frosty 28 degrees in southern New Hampshire this morning, October 17th. So things are definitely getting into good order as it pertains to the whitetail woods and getting deer up on their feet. So anyway, whatever you're doing, make it safe. Get home to your families and have fun out there. As always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. We will see you next Wednesday, Roundup, and then do tune in on the 24th for a feature podcast presentation of the Sportsman's Voice with guest Greg Ritz, the Resurrection Thompson Center Arms. Should be a fun one. Look forward to that. As always, we appreciate the support. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week. So long. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.